Welcome to the Thoroughly Wrong Project with Lalo and Bob. We appreciate you spending some time with us today. Let's jump right into that weekly dose of things you can disagree with. Take it away, guys.
And one. And guess what? Welcome to the Thoroughly Wrong Project. We're back. I don't know where you were, man, but I missed you.
No, I was here. I was taking care of some things.
Yeah. All right.
I meant to reply to you, but I just like lost track of it. Like I just had a lot of things to do.
Well, I get it. I get it. We all get busy, and I I knew it was one of three things that something was fucked up in your life. You were dead, or you ghosted me, and either one of those things wasn't good, and I just waited it out. I, I could have thrown a fit like a 12-year-old and started texting you every 15 minutes.
No, I mean, if even if you did, I'm sure I would have replied sooner. So,
That's cool. It's all good. How you been, man?
good. I've been good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How's
I got
school?
sick. Um, Good. I mean, I've been on break, so just enjoying that. Start back up like the end of this month.
Yeah.
I think it's the 25th.
Cool.
Just trying.
Cool. You said you got sick?
Yeah, I got COVID during like the holidays.
Happy holidays, man.
But I mean, it wasn't too bad for me. It just felt like it literally felt like a cold, and then I just lost my sense of taste and smell.
All right.
But other than that, it felt like a normal cold. It didn't feel like strong, or I never got a fever. I never got like body aches. It was just like cold symptoms. But I did test positive, so um,
Yeah, some of these variants they say are nothing. They're just like you said, like a cold. But some of these variants are like you get fucking brain damage when you're done.
yeah. And I seen a lot of people got sick like during the holidays.
Yeah.
But at least like a lot of people around me.
I wanted to do I keep dude, I haven't decided. I keep wanting to go back to wearing a mask. It just seems prudent. But
Hmm.
then I don't put one in my truck, and then I'm in the fucking grocery store and half the people are masked up, and I'm thinking I'm the dumb half here. So I really should go back to wearing it.
I mean, I'm just like we still wear it at work, so I'm just
Yeah,
still used to that.
yeah. I tried to get back into the county, and I got shot down.
Did you?
Yeah, because I didn't. Well, that
Okay, you didn't put
I
like two
had to.
weeks.
Dad didn't to do the 2 weeks, but you know it doesn't matter. I'm figuring it out. I'm figuring it out. I'm doing the substitute teaching, and I've all these fucking years that I spent wishing, that I could make money online, and I never sat down to figure out how. And in the last couple months, I've sat down and I took some free classes, and there's a lot of information out there there's a lot of hucksters out there, shyster motherfuckers. Now they'll take your dollars and point you at a public website, but there's a lot of people out there. I found this dude, and he said he makes money online, and he just tells people how to do it. He doesn't charge you any money, and it seems to be working. So
No, that's good.
maybe I figured this out, and it doesn't seem as when you first hear the numbers, it sounds impossible to monetize YouTube. You have to have 1,000 uh, subscribers and 4,000 hours of watched content, and that seems that you're thinking, "Fuck, man, that's a lot." But I'm almost 10% of the way there after a month, and I have never advertised. That's just setting things up and just using the algorithms.
Yeah,
So, so I will start advertising soon, but who knows, right? Never know until you try.
yeah. It's definitely a process, but I think that's the part where most people like give up.
Mm-hmm.
Is during like the process because it's It's
Well, I
not.
think a lot of fucking people give up because of the numbers. When you're talking about 4,000 hours of watched content, that's a lot of time. People, you're putting stuff out there that people have to want to watch. So I figured that my videos are that ambient noise to sleep by, meditation, ASMR, and binaural sounds.
Yeah,
These fucking videos are 8 hours long, so that means I need 500 users to watch 8 hours, and I got 4,000. So one video and 500 users, I can nail this. So, and that's why I said it's grown. I like got 10% within. Actually, I didn't even put a video online till about 8 days ago, and I'm 10% of the way there. So, got
that's
to
pretty
figure it out.
good.
Yeah, you got to figure it out. I'll send the shit to you later so you can subscribe because you have to support me. You don't have to watch, man. Just give me the fucking subscription number. That's all I need.
I'll play it overnight.
That's what you're supposed to do. And that, you know what? I thought it was bullshit, but I listened to the sound of a running empty dryer last night and went to sleep about 10 minutes. No shit. It works. I guess, of course, I was swimming in Daiquiri Lake last night too. So strawberry daiquiris, that kind of helps you sleep. I've been
I
back
think
to
that had more to
drinking.
do with it.
Yeah, maybe. No, I use these things every night, and they do help you go to sleep, and they do help you sleep better. And when you wake up in the middle of the night and you hear that droning noise, I got stuff like Jupiter drifting through space and all kinds of crazy shit on there. You'll see it. But the thing is, I think that we have to, as a culture, we're going to have to shift, man, because I can't. I truly cannot go back and work for somebody. I can't. I could if I had to, but the thing is, I'm just so fucking burnt out from listening to people, especially these people who, like when I was at the county, the people who rise up to these levels of inadequacy that are insane. And it's like you just wonder how in the hell did you get your job, because you obviously can't do it. So I just got tired of it, man. I don't think like that. I don't think in terms of um, productivity and putting pressure on people, and I'm going to write you up because you're not doing what I said. None of that shit makes sense to me anymore, Lalo.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that style of like management,
Right.
um, but to me, there's like just certain sectors where I think that shouldn't apply, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think one of those, like if you want to talk like productivity and things like that, numbers, I feel like if you work like in a sector that deals with things like money and stuff like that, like that's, I would say, fine.
Right.
It's like a tough business and economics and stuff like that. But when it comes to like human services, I feel like productivity shouldn't be like the number one goal.
Right. Right.
And I feel like that's what's going on.
There should be some other way to measure the metric that instead of cash,
Right.
how are we helping the people here? And I felt like when I left the county, I felt like that the people that I was working for, it was it, the homeless people weren't important anymore. It's what are the fucking numbers? What are the fucking numbers? What are the fucking numbers? It's like, well, who are we helping here? So I just took off. Could have
Yeah.
had to.
And I mean I think that, and that comes from like way up top,
Yeah,
from
of
like
course.
very, very top. Um, from like state level, federal level,
Yeah.
and then it just kind of trickles down to, your local levels. Um, but yeah, I mean, and you see that everywhere. You see that profit, um, like priority in
Right.
a lot of places where I don't think they should be. Like education, prison system, healthcare, things like that. You shouldn't. Your main goal when running, like let's say a prison, shouldn't be how can I make the most money possible. You know,
Right.
because when you do things like that, when you put the money over like the people that you're serving, um, you're only doing a disservice to them.
Right.
Because they're on the back burner, and then they're going to end up suffering. Because at the end of the day, they're just a number.
Yeah. And I base my business in wellness. So, that sound part of it is just it's just a division of it. And I have um, exercise and diet, meditation, sound therapy, and there's all this stuff that all ties back to holistic wellness. And my main idea here is that meditation has become a business, exercise has become a business, diet has become a business. Everything that people need is now monetized. So when you're talking about somebody who makes minimum wage and you want to tell them, okay, meditation, you should meditate. And here's a class that's going to cost you $700. Well, my class cost me $2,000, and I got, for me personally, and I got a VA kind of discount. So my main goal here is to give away the basic levels, teach people how to meditate for free, teach people how to exercise for free, teach people how, to sleep, eat, all the things that we need to do as human beings to be a better human being, and not, and I don't mean culturally, I mean physically be better human beings, is free. I'm giving that shit away. And if you want to go further, then there's all kinds of programs out there I can point you to, or it's just this weird thing that all that happened. Like you said, mental health is not mental health anymore. It's how much, where's the money? And, the prison system is not to make better human beings or anymore. It's just, where's the money? So all these
Yeah.
things I want to try, I'm trying to back up and focus my life on helping people, and still, I still want to make money, but it's not my main fucking fixation. I want to fucking help people, Lalo. I see too much suffering out there.
Yeah. And I mean, there is like, a lot of places where, it's important, like it's a necessity almost to make money.
Of course. Yeah.
But I just think it shouldn't be in everything. And it's okay to like, when you're investing in like, all these things, healthcare, prison system, education, all these things are like you're investing in other people.
Right.
Um, I think we're so like fixated on like making money in every single like way possible
Right.
that I don't know, you just like you lose focus of like what you intended to do in the first place.
Yes. And that's where I actually came to an existential crisis in my life. Since we last spoke, I just broke down, man. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm watching people suffer everywhere now. Everybody is sick and tired and overweight, and their countries are at war, and mental health is a fucking disaster. This whole country of ours is just, from coast to coast, is just one big goddamn problem. And we need people to step out of it and say, okay, I think we need, I would like to see more think tanks and more universities that don't want to make money. And I'd like to see more mental health places that are like, you know what, let's pay our people and let's not worry. Let's track the money and use it wisely. I'm not saying we don't need to track them and we don't need to make money, but like you said, we need to refocus ourselves away from how much money Jeff Bezos makes. We need to refocus our priorities and say, this should be more about the people, not about power, not about politics, not about money, not about all the things that the circus that we call American American culture now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean because like I said earlier, it comes from like the very top down. I think
Yep.
that's why it's so hard to um like get the ball rolling on
Right.
like any sort of change because you would kind of have to get it rolling from the top, you know.
Yeah.
Um
And Kevin McCarthy cannot be Speaker of the House
well, he wasn't for a few days.
for 15 times. He wasn't. That's all right. That's okay. I mean, don't you see? You're deep in it. Are you seeing any positive changes for real? I mean, because if you're looking at it, if you're looking for them, you're going to find them. And when I got out, I wasn't looking anymore. I was just looking at this huge fucking problem, and I just wanted to put it behind me. But then I got away from it, and I turned around, and I was like, like you and Kat and all the people out there on the fucking streets, you guys are heroes. You're the warriors trying to do right, and at the same time, you're battling two fronts here. You're battling, is my productivity okay? And I have supervision this week, and money and all this stuff. But at the same time, you're split into this other person who's this empathetic, picking people up off the street. Man, I got a lot of respect for that. You know?
Yeah, and I mean there definitely is like visible change, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more like I forgot which one it is. I think it's micro. It's more on a micro level,
Okay.
um, because that's kind of what you're going to be limited to when you're working like within such a big like system, you know.
Right.
Um, so
Especially when you have the numbers of homeless people that you have that you're working with.
right, and I mean, I think a lot of that also has to do with like perspective because when you see that, like, I think a lot of people get disillusioned because you know, they could spend like their entire life like trying to change something
Right.
and you're only limited to yourself, like you're only one person. So you could accomplish, whatever you accomplish in life and then, a lot of people look back and think like, "Oh wow, like I didn't really do much,"
Yeah.
like overall, like when it comes to fixing a certain problem. Um you
I
could like advocate for like homeless people and then you could run a soup kitchen and or run like a food drive or like a food bank, and then when you're 30 years from now, like, oh, there's still like homeless
yeah.
people and there's still a homeless issue, like it's very easy to look at that and kind of feel like you didn't do anything. So I think the perspective that we take on like what we're able to do and what we actually do is a big part of like the issue,
Yeah.
because it's not gonna be solved by like one person overnight.
No, definitely not. Especially the scope of the problem that we have or problems.
Yeah. So I mean, it's definitely a process, and I think you just need, or we just need, like the right people, like in the right um like places, in politics and all these different like areas. And I think that's how you get that big change,
Yeah.
that like systemic change is by um just pushing the right buttons at the right time. And a lot of things like we won't even see like the like that big change moment for a lot of issues. We might not even see them like in our lifetime,
Yeah. Like
and that's
planting
okay.
a
Like that's,
tree.
yeah, and that's like that's normal. And I know for a lot of people also very like frustrating, um especially when it comes to like economic issues, because people want to, like, they have this idea of how things should run and what would be more like productive and what would be better, and then they, because it's something they want to experience themselves,
Right.
So
Well,
if it
that's
doesn't,
not that's not selfish to ask that.
no, not at all. But I also think it's
It's
like you should,
unrealistic.
yeah. Um, but I mean, you never know when that moment is gonna come. You know,
Right.
it's like I think we're closer now than we have been like in a long time. So you know, it's kind of just it's almost like a game of chess. You know, you have to like make the right move at the right time.
Yeah. You got to look ahead. I you know, I feel bad for you guys because you see little victories but you don't see anything great, and teachers are the same way. And it, you know, where you spend your entire life helping kids, and culture keeps going down and down and down, and violence is rising, and mental health issues are rising, and addiction crisis, and all this stuff you see, and it's the kids that you're teaching, or you're sending them out into that. But you got to think, what I was thinking of is every every year, my wife is, I think she's been 9 years now teaching, but every year now she's starting to get a trickle of kids come back to see her who have
Mhm.
succeeded. And one of them's a teacher at her school. And it's just all this, you got to find it, man. When I worked for the county, I couldn't find it. I couldn't find the good in it. After I got beaten down so far, I was just like, that's enough. You know, I'm trying to do good here, and all I'm doing is getting punched in the face. And those are the people I feel badly for. It's like you're trying to do good, you can't see the future, and all you're getting are these tiny little victories that don't seem to amount to much. Like I put somebody in a shelter, and now they're not an addict, but you've got to figure, you got to you got to look at it like, wait a minute, that guy's off the street and he's not an addict anymore, and I helped do that. So you got to find the victories in it, you know. Even though homelessness isn't over, that person's homelessness is over.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like the perspective is very important uh, because that's how people like give up, or that's how people become like pessimistic and stuff like that. You know?
Yeah, yeah, and I did. I got burnt out and pessimistic, and I quit. But it didn't take away my empathy, and it didn't take away my desire to help people. It just shifted my focus to something that, everybody's an individual, and the way I think is not the way my boss thought, and that created friction. And then when I was in supervision, it got heated because we couldn't see eye to eye, and so that made me leave. But it also made me refocus myself and look for another way to help people. So maybe that's what, if you're burnt out there, listen, just fucking quit, walk away and do something else.
Yeah, and I mean that's why also like there's big advocacy for like self care. You know,
Yeah.
because especially when you're dealing with these type of um like this type of work um where it's um like whatever work you're doing is part of like the bigger issue, you know, or
Yeah.
is addressing like a big issue overall. um at that point it's very easy to like lose track of like yourself, you
Yeah.
know, because you get so caught up in like trying to do all these things at the same time and trying to help all these different people
Yeah.
that you kind of neglect yourself.
But then it become those it becomes bullshit buzzwords too. You know, if you're getting emails about self-care and videos about self-care and buzzwords about self-care, and all of a sudden self-care becomes just another thing that you're doing instead of experiencing. And that's, I think that's the key to self-care, is it's got to be experiential. You can't be like, this is my self-care. You have to be like, I'm taking a shower and I'm relaxing and I'm going to watch a movie and I'm going to go for a hike and all these things. And you can't attach this mechanism to it. This is the self-care that will make me better to go back to work. That's not how it works. And that's what we've done to it again. It's almost like that capitalism has twisted everything to make it productive. And your self-care now has to be productive. And that's not what we're talking about. And I think self-care needs to be talked about in a way like, what do you like to do? Go do that thing, and don't think about self-care, and don't think about work, and don't think about anything. Just go enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's a good point that even like, when you try to like step away from like everything, even that, nowadays has to like be productive in
Yeah.
a sense.
Yeah. We talk about self-care like it's another aspect of our job, and we shouldn't. It shouldn't be part of our job at all, unless that's your self-care, I guess, That's the thing you choose. Because I know people that love work. And okay, that's cool. I don't. I don't. I've sat at this computer for, in the last 8 days, dude, probably, I'm going to say a good 70 to 80 hours. Enjoyed every minute of it because I was doing something that felt good for me, and it's going to benefit my family. It's going to benefit a bunch of people, and I don't want to turn it into something that's, hateful. And it's like when the artist becomes, it opens a business for his art, and then his art becomes business. And I don't want to do that.
Yeah. And
I
then
just want to help people.
yeah. And I think that happens a lot. Um, like that old saying, like, if you do something you love, like you'll never work a day
Yeah,
in your life.
I want to stab people in the face that say that.
And I mean, I get the intent behind it, like
I
it's
do
really
too.
good, like advice and stuff.
Hmm.
But I think, like you said, that happens a lot where oh, I love painting. I'm gonna like, uh, paint on my spare time, and then you sell like a few paintings here and there, and then you have deadlines, and oh, you have
Exactly.
orders now, and then you start to stress out, and now like painting's not fun anymore.
Right.
Like hate it.
I think do what you love has been twisted around to mean
Make
love what
money.
you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, love what you do, no matter what it is. If you're in healthcare, by God, love healthcare because you'll never work a day in your life. It's like I can't make myself like industrial manufacturing. Sorry, it's not the way it works. And I'd have never liked it. I I really have never liked the job that I ever had, Lalo. I mean, I've tolerated a lot of them, and some of them have been fun for a little bit of time. But I'm that weird type of person that I go in, I learn everything. I'm like, well, what else is there to learn? It's like, well, that's it. You're doing it, and I'm like, fuck this. I'm out of here. If there's nothing to make me grow and nothing to make me learn, then I don't want to be in it. I just get stagnant quick. I guess I
Yeah.
have a psychological problem.
No, I mean, I think a lot of people feel that way. It's just it's kind of hard for them to um like analyze it and then come to that conclusion. But like the sentiment is there.
Yeah, I
So
hate
it's
my job and I have a miserable life, and I'm just going to continue doing it.
yeah. But I mean, part of the reason why people kind of fail or not fail, but like aren't able to like recognize that is because they're just so caught up with um like surviving.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
I'm blessed, dude. Seriously. I mean,
yeah.
and I don't say that in a Christian way, but I am really lucky because I am I have a wife who supports my lunacy of trying to find that way to make money off the internet, which is it's not unreasonable, but you got to do in order to do things like I'm doing. When you don't have the opportunities I do, you have to work all day and work all night. So my wife allows me, I can work a few days a week and spend a lot of time on this, and we still get by. But a lot of people, you can't work in fast food for 8 hours a day and then come home and do this for 8 more hours and then sleep. It's a way to kill yourself. And I feel lucky that I have the opportunities that I have, and hopefully I can capitalize on it. Oh, there's that fucking word again.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember hearing, I forgot who it was, but it was like this celebrity. It's like an interview they were doing, and they were talking about how, growing up, like their parents couldn't afford to like be depressed or something along those lines,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, at the end of the day, like, my dad had to go to work and, put food on the table and, all this. And I think that sentiment or that message is like a little, not misguided, but just like a little off, because I'm pretty sure like the parents in that situation, like they were depressed, but it's not that they couldn't, or it's not that they weren't depressed because they were too busy like putting food on the table.
Yeah.
It's that they were still, you know, they still had depression, but they just couldn't address it because of, the necessities and responsibilities that they had.
Right.
Like the feelings are still there, It's just being able to address it and kind of like take a step back. That's the I think that's the luxury that, that we're able to have.
Yeah. Today, yeah, because when I was growing up and my grandmother was on antidepressants, and my grandfather was uh, not really a nice man. I'll just leave it at that. And she was on antidepressants, and she ended up, you know, smiling her way into the mental institution. So she ended up on the third floor of the hospital somewhere because she was depressed and she was angry, but she didn't have any outlets for it except take a pill and shove it back down. So, nowadays we're looking at depression, we're looking at relationship problems, we're looking at domestic violence, we're looking at all the things that all these people 50 years ago had to deal with by pretending like it didn't happen and it wasn't real. So that led to this. So that's a good thing. I don't know what this is going to lead to. We're all we're all a bunch of snowflakes now. It's like when the university president talks, he can't move his hands because that's a microaggression. That kind of shit.
No, I mean, I do think it's like trending in the right direction.
You think it swung too far?
What do you mean?
Everything is offensive now. Everything, comedy, movies, the way we speak, the way we think, the way we talk, what we look at, how we look, everything is fucking offensive, and it's aggression towards somebody else, and it's
Well, I think
you
things
know
like
what I
that
mean?
have always been the case. Like let's say, um, like little kids, like they'll call like people or like things like gay,
Yeah,
or like anything.
right,
And, whether you said it, yesterday in the playground or whether you said it like 40 years ago, I think there would still be people that were offended by it. Like all these things that are being said, like there's not new words being invented that are like super offensive.
right,
Like all these things have existed already. I think it's just the level of like awareness and the level of people like saying something about it that's changed.
right,
And then in that sense, I can see how people think like, oh, like everything's offensive now, but like these things have been offensive to certain people they just weren't able to like speak up about it,
Right.
um and now they're at a point where they feel comfortable like speaking up or like saying something, um because of like the more, I guess, like inclusive like environment that we live in.
Right.
So I think that's the biggest difference. um and I mean, I do see places where it's like it could be like a little, you could call it like a little like over dramatic or
Right.
exaggerated. But for the most part, I mean, I feel like people are entitled to, be offended or whatever.
Of course.
um
Are but the question is, yeah, people are entitled to be offended, but are the offended entitled to get somebody fired or get somebody canceled? And I know we've talked about it before, but like there's plenty of examples out there that are blown way out of proportion, and that's the ones you see. And I'll totally agree with you that I've cleaned my language up not because I'm afraid, but because okay, well, I could say something that offended somebody, like just that's gay, and I don't say that shit anymore because I people find it offensive. But at the same time, Louis C.K. didn't pull his cock out and say, you want to watch. He said, "I'm getting ready to masturbate," and then that turned into that thing where people can't even be the radicals out there, the comedians and the actors and all the stuff that we're getting rid of because of their actions. And maybe it's not that many. Maybe it's just blown out of proportion in the media because the media fucking sucks in our country. But I think to get somebody canceled, like the Louis C.K. situation, is going too far. Is his hotel room? I'll argue that till the day I die. And a lot of comedians are arguing the same thing. He said what he was going to do. You stayed.
but yeah, well, I mean, in his, and I mean, I love like Louis CK, like I've seen him perform and stuff, and I think
Yeah.
he's hilarious. But like in his situation, I'm also able to see um like it's very easy to like look at that situation and just be like, oh, why didn't you leave, um but at the same time, like you can, I think once you really like analyze it, um there's always going to be like, not always, but in most circumstances, and definitely in this one, there's that like power uh imbalance
Right.
in place, where it was like, you have like the super famous like celebrity, um and then you had like a fan or like a girl, that obviously knows that he's famous and stuff like that.
Right.
um so you have like that uh power imbalance situation, and then you also have like the male and female like uh situation where, you know hey, this guy could tell you like, hey, I'm gonna do this, uh if you don't want to like be here, like you can leave. So, on the surface level it sounds like, oh, like I can just go. But at the same time, like you have to put yourself in the position of like the girl, and like what if she decided to go, like all these things go through her head, like if I decide to go, what is he really just gonna let me go? Is he gonna like lock me in here and force me? Like these things like go through the other person's head that I think we don't really think about. um
Well, dude, I have thought about it,
and I mean,
dude.
people like, have you ever seen of situations where people just like freeze up,
Yeah, yeah, plenty,
so,
plenty.
and that happens in a lot of things, in a lot of situations, especially like in um like sexual assault situations where like the victims, they like freeze up, they're like in shock,
Of course.
they're like catatonic, and they can't, you know like they don't scream for help, like they don't, try to run away or fight it. uh, but that doesn't make it like not assault, like, oh, why didn't you like yell? Oh, like you were, he was like forcing himself on you, why didn't you like do anything, why didn't you fight back? Oh, well, you didn't fight back, so it means you must have wanted it, like to some degree. And I think that like point of view or that like approach to the situation is what um, does the most harm, uh, besides the actual assault, because at that point you're kind of you're like blaming the victim and saying, oh well, like
I don't see how they were victimized. That's my point. That's what I'm saying. And that's what I've talked to a
well, for a
lot
lot of
of women too. And even some of the women I've talked to have said, okay, when you're talking about superstars and rock stars and backstage, all that has connotations. And when you step into that fucking world, it's like, well, there's a 200 mile an hour wind outside that door. I'm going to go ahead and step into it and not be affected by it. That's not how it works, Lalo. That is that's like stepping into the corporate world and wearing a t-shirt and expecting everybody to acquiesce to you. When you go into a power situation, you better know you're in a power situation, and then you can get out of it. And it doesn't matter how it what's going on backstage. Everybody does. Everybody does. It's not a secret. So these women were in a hotel room paid for by Louis C.K. He says, I'm going to masturbate. I don't think there's any sexual assault going on here. I just think it's like you're in a world where you don't fucking need to be.
Yeah, I mean, I just see it as like him taking advantage of like his status and using that like to his advantage when it comes to like, you know, because I'm pretty sure like any other person, if that was like a random like person from the street, um, like people are more inclined to leave. But because it's like a celebrity and they have money and they have influence and
Yeah,
all
power.
these things,
You're stepping into a 200-mile-an-hour wind. What do
I
you
think there's
expect?
like a degree of like pressure also that comes into that. Um, so I mean, I don't, and I
It's
mean
thinking.
a lot of things like people don't realize it till like after the fact. There's a lot of uh, girls that go out partying and um, they end up like having sex with somebody, and it's not till like the next day or like when they wake up where they start thinking to themselves like I was pretty drunk, like did I like do this, did I say this, did I say that?
Yeah.
And that's when in hindsight, that's where a lot of things like begin to kind of click for people.
Yeah, like, wow, 50 years ago I was drunk and that rock star that was his fault. That's not, I don't think that's, yeah, I just don't see it, man. I think it's a sticky situation to get into. Haha, didn't mean it like that, but just saying, we need to be, everybody, we need to stop being such snowflakes and we need to stop being such power mongers over here. So those are the two extremes. It's like what's going on in Congress now with the ultra MAGAs on this side and the ultra conservatives over here. They're not talking to each other, and it's causing problems. It's causing huge problems. So I think that situation we're talking about was indicative of everybody needs to educate themselves. You can't stop. They wanted to be in that room because it was Louis C.K. and there were certain expectations that Louis C.K. had and certain expectations that they had, and they were unspoken. And then when everything went down, it's all Louis C.K.'s fault, and he loses his status, he loses his job, and it's what's the guy's name from the director or from Miramax?
uh Harvey Weinstein.
Weinstein. It wasn't of that caliber of assault. And that motherfucker needs to be, he's a rapist. Totally. I mean, totally. He's just a rapist. I don't see CK Louis as a rapist. I see him as an exhibitionist.
Well, I just see it. Well, that certain like action or whatever he did to me is just like weird, like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's. I'll give you
Like
that.
you could call him a creep and stuff like that.
Is it punishable?
Um, I
That's the
think it just
thing.
depends. Like, I
It
mean,
depends. If he wasn't Louis C.K., it wouldn't be punishable. But he is, so it is.
no, I think just the degree of like punishment is different because if it was just like some random person, they would just get the sexual assault charge and like um indecent exposure or whatever. Um, but with celebrities, I think there's different because they have that celebrity status element
Right.
to it, and that's something also that they can lose. And I always like tell people like, imagine if that was like your kid, like do you think you would feel the same way?
Let me.
Like, would you tell your kid like you could have just left?
Well, I'm going to educate my. I'm going to educate my child before that kind of shit happens. And I have my all my daughters as soon as they became awake. And I know this sounds patriarchal, but as soon as they woke up to their own sexuality and began to mature and began to date and all those things, I was very honest with them. And blunt honesty is what we need, dude. And I would tell my kids, my 16-year-old daughters, I would tell them, listen, you're going out on a date. I was a 16-year-old boy once, and 16-year-old boys have one thing on their mind, sweetheart. Be careful. And here's how to protect yourself. And here's how to talk to them, and here's how to interact with them. And if you don't want to get in trouble and you don't want to get hurt, you need to listen. And you know what? They did. And I've never had a child who's been even in a situation where they could be sexually assaulted because I woke them up when they were teenagers. And the thing is, we're so afraid to talk to our kids about sex like it's some secret thing and an embarrassing thing. I'm not embarrassed at all about talking to my kids about sex because that's how to keep them out of trouble. And I told my boys too, respect girls. And when somebody says no, they don't mean fucking maybe, dude. They mean no, stop. So I have raised my kids to be awake to the fact that you don't hurt other people. Number one, you don't expose yourself. So protect yourself and don't hurt others. And I think that's what we're missing because if my kid would have went to a famous person, if my girls at age 18 to 20 would have gone to a famous person's hotel room, they would have known exactly what the fuck was going on.
Yeah. But I mean, not everybody has like that, like information or that um, like that guidance, like before the fact.
Yeah, I know that, and that's the problem. That's a huge problem. If you don't have information, you're gonna get your finger cut off in an industrial situation if you don't know how to run the machinery.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get assaulted if you don't. If you're going to get assaulted, or you're going to become a person doing the assault if your parents don't teach you what you need to know.
Yeah, but I mean, I also think that lack of information or it shouldn't, like, it doesn't make things like your fault.
Right. I'm not saying it was their fault. I'm saying the whole situation was somebody lost their job and their status and money and was humiliated. And I think it went too far. That's all.
Well, I
I
mean,
think both sides.
he's like, like in his case specifically, like he's like I've seen him around more often.
Hmm.
Like he kind of just like laid low for like a few years,
Yeah.
and then until like people kind of forgot about it or like didn't really care all that much about it anymore.
Yeah, our attention span, our attention, 15-minute attention span took care of it.
Yeah.
So he's
Uh,
back.
yeah. So I mean, there are like, the whole like cancel culture thing that people like to talk about, like the way people describe it or word it or like try to like present it, it makes it sound um like hypersensitive,
Yeah.
like, oh, I can't say this because they might cancel me, or I can't, or people say things like, oh, I can't say anything nowadays because people might cancel me, and it's like, okay, well, what are you trying to say? Like what are these things that you're wanting to say that you know you're not allowed to say anymore by society? And I think once you ask people that question and they like tell you whatever they're trying to say or whatever they want to say, for I not for all of them, but for a lot of people, it's like, oh yeah, because that's homophobic or that's like racist.
Yeah.
So I think when you excuse me, when you ask people like that follow-up question of like, oh well, what are you trying to say that you can't say? What's the thing you can't say? It's the same thing when people talk about like, oh, I can't believe like people like try to cancel me just for having different views,
Yeah.
like I can't think differently. And it's like, okay, well, what are your views? What are these different views that people are trying to cancel you for? And it's like, oh, I believe, gay people shouldn't get married. It's like, oh, okay. So you're like a homophobe, you know? So I think once you like push people on the details, or like, with like the follow-up questions and stuff like that,
Yeah.
um, I think that's when you see like, oh, okay, like this is what you want to do, or this is what you're trying to do. And I think that really does matter because, on the surface level, it sounds like, people are just being soft, and sensitive.
Right.
But once you like actually dig deeper, I think it's more than that. And I think people have like a right to like be upset and, um, you know, cancel the whole cancel culture. Like that's not anything. I wouldn't say it's anything new. This type of thing has happened for a long time, even here in the United States. Like, um, and they have different names for it, like boycotts, strikes, stuff like that.
Right.
So I think, you know, if you say something or if someone says something that's like, um, racist or, homophobic or whatever it may be, and people want to like call you out on it, um, like I don't see like the issue with that. Um, but at the same time, I also do believe that people, um, are deserving of like, second chances and like redemption,
Sure.
you
Well,
know,
some. Let's
yeah,
we're not going to give
for the
Harvey a
most part.
chance.
For the most part, I think a lot of things are like redeemable for people,
Yeah.
especially if like you didn't know better or like, if it was like something that was like super like a long time ago, like, oh, I did like blackface like 30 years ago,
Right.
that type of thing. Because I mean, the education was just different back then, what we were taught and things like that. So I think in a lot of those situations, like, yes, there's like redemption available and we shouldn't like crucify them like for life. Um, but I do think it's like the whole like cancel thing for a lot of people. It's more of a like a learning situation,
Yeah.
And I think it also matters how people approach it. Like, if you just like berate them and like, um, just like insult them and try to like take all their shit away versus like trying to show them or like teach them or tell them like, oh, like this is why, you know, it's, homophobic to say that, or like this is like the context or like the history behind, this word or this phrase or whatever it may be.
Right. Well, I think you're onto something here when you said, go ahead and go ahead and define what you're talking about. I think that's indicative of our culture, man. We scream out these words like the extremists on the right and the left, like we want freedom. It's like, okay, that sounds very nice. Can you define that? And then you start, when you get into their definition of freedom, you find out, wow, they're homophobic, they're Christian based, uh, racism. There's all kinds of this crazy shit going on in their head that you need to deconstruct that without threatening the word freedom.
Yeah.
And that's what we've done. That's what cancel culture, or I wouldn't agree that cancel culture and boycotting are the same. I wouldn't. Uh, Boycotting is more of anti-capitalism to me, and a way to get a company to change because you threaten their bottom line. I guess it does have parallels now that I've talked about it. And now that I've talked about it, because you're threatening a person's way to make money by canceling them. But what we need to do here, man, is instead of just saying these buzzwords like don't offend people, let's get down to brass tacks. Now, what does that mean? And I think that there's a comedian coming out. I can't remember, a black comedian in 2023. He has a special coming up called "Enough Is Enough," or something similar to that. And he's hinted that he's going to set the record straight. It's like, it's comedy. Everybody fucking calm down. If you don't like scary movies, don't go to scary movies. If you don't like this kind of comedy, don't come,
Yeah.
because some people do find offensive shit offensive, and some people find that same exact phrase in the exact same way funny. So we need to relax that and put these things in context and define them, like you said. Oh, I'm offended. Well, define that. Well, I want freedom. Well, define what you mean by that, so we can talk about giving you the freedom that you ask for.
Yeah. And I mean, for me personally, when it comes to like comedy, I do think there's a lot more like um leeway, I guess, you
Yeah,
could call it. But at the same time, I think one thing that also needs to be like relayed is that yes, it's comedy, but a lot of people go to like comedy shows and take what those comics say as jokes and like try to like pull some like sort of like truth out of it.
right.
Especially with like the most recent person I think of is like Dave Chappelle. He had all his like Netflix specials where he was like uh I wouldn't say hyper focused, but a big focus of them was like trans people.
Right, right. I watched the last one, and he talked way too much about it.
And like there's a thing where like yes, it's a comedy show, but I think a lot of people leave those comedy shows and take some sort of like truth from it.
Yeah,
um, and then try to apply those truths like in their lives or like in other people's lives. And I think that's where like begin to have like issues, because you take these things that were you know jokes and you try to make them not jokes.
yeah,
And in the context of a joke, like they might be harmless, but in the context of real life or like day-to-day life and society, like they could be very harmful.
yeah. But that's like saying that, to me. That's like saying silverware. We have to do away with silverware because you can use it as a fucking weapon. I can stab you with a butter knife, and that's not what it was meant for. But that's taking the object or the thought, or and applying your own experience to it, and then twisting that around, and suddenly that's the comedian's fault. That's not the comedian. It's like if I stab you with a butter knife, dude, it's not the company that made the butter knife's problem. It's
Right, but I also
my
feel like it's
problem.
the companies, like the company should also like, if they just like, let's say like spoons were never like invented, you know,
Yeah.
and it's like a brand new invention, and they just came out with them, but when they like put them on the store shelves, like they don't actually tell you what they are, like what they're for, you know.
Right.
Um, I mean, a lot of people are gonna like take those spoons or like those butter knives and like, you know, try to do a bunch of different shit with them until they figure out, oh, this is the what they're meant for, you know.
Well, I hate to shoot you down on this one, but silverware is usually found in the housewares section, and comedy clubs are usually where fucking jokes come from. So when we go to these places and buy the silverware or go and buy the ticket to the comedy club, we're going to a comedy show. And when we
Right, but
take
people
that,
don't like. It's not. I would say the comparison. It's not so like one for one because one of them is like very, very obvious and doesn't happen. Like you don't see people like left and right using spoons as like
right,
knife. You know that like that's not a common thing. Whereas when people go to like these shows and kind of misconstrue like the jokes and try to, you know, almost it almost seems like a lot of people try to like find like reasoning behind their own personal
yeah,
beliefs,
yeah,
but
it's like
in
my
these jokes.
daughter who gets mad and then she'll look for the reason she's mad.
Right. So I
So
think a
it's
lot of
like
people
being
try to
racist.
validate.
Yeah, you're getting racist, and then you're hearing racist shit on stage, and you're like, aha, that's
Yeah.
why I'm racist. No, that's not why you're racist. You're racist because you are.
Or they'll hear those things and like, you know, almost like validate like their beliefs because like, oh, um, like, oh, I don't think gay people should be married. And then someone makes like a gay marriage joke and it's like, oh, see, like, this
That,
just reinforces my belief of like,
yeah.
that it shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah, I see. I do see that. The best trans jokes I ever heard in my life were from Lori, my my trans friend. So, I can't. I'll never repeat them because I understand the context, and
Yeah.
that's when you go to see Dave Chappelle. I do think he has a problem with trans people because me thinks he doth protest too much.
I think Dave Chappelle's um, problem or issue, I guess, is that I and I mean this is like purely me just like speculating and just based on like watching his specials and stuff.
Right.
I think part of him is frustrated with the difference in like civil rights when it comes to black people versus civil rights when it comes to like the LGBT community.
Yeah, dude, that's
and
a good
and
observation.
I think he is a little frustrated with like the difference in like progress in the
Hmm.
amount of time. And
Yeah,
like I said,
that
this is
is.
this is basically this is 100% just like my opinion. I think he wishes or he's mad that it's almost like, we fought for all these rights and it took us, 30 like, decades,
Yeah,
to get to where we are now. But then this other minority group has been fighting the same fight like for a lot less and they're like on par,
right,
and I
right.
think that's frustrating to him. So it's almost like he's pitting, like he's comparing like uh it's almost like he's comparing like the suffering,
Yeah, and
uh,
you gotta y- without being offensive, and I'm not bringing up any trans or gay or any other rights. That right there, when you look at it, because I have watched his special, I've scrutinized his specials because he he's a he's a voice for our culture. He really is, and no matter how far off base he gets, people listen to him. But That dude, that's got to be frustrating. That's got to be 1865 is when it occurred, and it took a hundred fucking years to get the ball rolling, and it's still taken another 50 years, 60 even, to get to where um, black people are now, and they're still impoverished and undereducated and held down and incarcerated and all the fucking shit we do to people of color. To look and see I can see his frustration at that point. That's an excellent point, dude, and that made me look at Dave in a different way.
Yeah, but I mean, I also think like his frustration shouldn't be with the other minority group, you know. It should be
Right.
with like the system as a whole because that's what he's fighting against. It's not like trans people are the ones oppressing black people, you know.
Right. Exactly.
So I
But
think it's just like his frustration is like misguided or like aimed at the wrong people, you know?
yeah, but isn't that just human beings?
Yeah, I mean that's very like
It's like when your girlfriend's busting your balls and you go and you snap at your, coworker. It wasn't your coworker
yeah.
at all. And your coworker's like, what the hell's going on in your life? And you can't say why personal issues because that doesn't make it okay that you attacked me.
Yeah. And it is very human, but at the same time when you're like uh a person of like his status and you
Hmm.
have like so much like influence and stuff like that, all that stuff gets like exaggerated, you know?
Yeah, it
All
does.
those actions they mean a lot more and I think that's where you get like the problems from, you know? Because
Well,
if he was any other person that feels that way, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that feel that way, um, you know, whatever they say probably won't mean much to like society, you know?
right, right. The guy
But
on the guy on the corner says something against trans people. You're just like you blowing him off as whatever.
yeah, but
But he has a
whenever he has,
national stage.
yeah, he has like a platform, he has like a microphone, like literally, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
on his head. Yeah,
so it's very like the consequences are a lot greater of whatever he says. And then also because he is a celebrity, people tend to take whatever celebrities say like more serious or as of higher value, you
right,
know?
right. And
Um,
even when they're a Kardashian, even everything they
yeah.
say is something.
Yeah, and I mean that's just society like holding celebrities to like some like standard that
Yep.
that's different than all of us.
The cult status of celebrity, it is, man. It always has been. They get away with more up until about 5 years ago, and now they can't get away with anything. And I think that section of our culture is also learning that you don't rape and you don't hurt people and you don't use people because you will be held accountable for it. And that's something that the as much as I hate to say it, the term cancel culture, but that's something that has happened. It's made a lot of people stop and go, okay, I'm hurting people, and when I hurt people, I can lose my status. So I've changed like I said, I've changed my language. I've changed it completely. And I never meant to be harmful to anybody. I just thought it was funny. And now I know that it's okay for me to sit in my living room and watch my 55-inch television and watch Dave Chappelle say something, and I can laugh, but I can't take it out. I can't take it
Yeah.
outside. It's like if we considered our relationship with celebrities as a personal thing, as a personal issue, instead of taking it and making it some sort of public thing. Is I agree with Dave Chappelle that trans people suck, and you're like, that's not what he was saying. Well, that's how I took it. So
Yeah, and I mean people take things like they interpret things very differently.
yeah, well, it's all your
It's all
interpretation
subjective.
is
Yeah.
from personal experience, and you don't have my experience. So
Exactly.
Well, I'll say one thing closing, man. I'm trying to teach my daughter. She has a boyfriend now, and they fight constantly, and it's always some stupid issue. What I think is stupid, but I'm sure it's important to both of them. But I'm trying to teach them that if we could teach America, it's hard to fight with somebody who won't fight you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, say what you need to say, and you're going to calm down in 5 minutes anyway. That's just, your anger is going to burn out, and then you're going to think about it. So that's the way I've handled my fourth marriage. In my first 3 marriages, I had to get my point out there, and I had to make myself clear, and my needs have to be met and all this. When that situation arises in my life and there's heated discussion, as soon as the heated discussion starts, I stop. As soon as I feel myself getting emotional, I stop. Negative emotions. And I don't, let's clarify that too real quick. I don't mean negative. Anger is not a negative emotion. It can be justified. But as soon as I feel those emotions that can start a fight or start, making somebody feel bad, or I'm going to say something stupid, I just stop, Lalo. So if we could teach people on both sides, it's really hard to fight with somebody who won't fight you, then things will calm down a little bit. You're still going to have racist people. You're always going to have racists. You're always going to have homophobes. You're always going to have somebody that hates somebody for their fucking haircut. And there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. But if we stop fighting and went about our lives and found the people that agreed with us, then things will be a lot better. It's not like we're ever going to come down to the conclusion in this, this some mamby-pamby world where everybody gets along. That's not going to work. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But we need to stop with the arguments and bashing people and hating on other people. And as soon as somebody rises up and wants to fight, let them say what they have to say, and then agree or disagree with them, but you're not going to change them,
Yeah. It's kind of like you have to know when to just step away,
Yeah. And I've learned in my life, that stepping away from an argument before it starts is the best thing for me. Unless, I'm not going to let people hurt me. I'm not going to let people hurt my wife or my children or my friends. I'm not going to let a fucking stranger hurt another stranger if I can help it. But at the same time, this back and forth sniping about shit it's just got to stop, man. It's just got to stop. But like you said, it's not going to. It's not going to. And Kevin McCarthy is the Speaker of the House. Shit.
We'll see for how long.
Well, since
might not make it the 2 years.
I don't think so. If one person can shoot him down as soon as he runs into one of those situations where he breaks a promise, that one person will shoot him down.
Yeah.
And here we go. Hey, man, it was good talking to you. Welcome back.
Thanks. Good to be back.
Yeah. All right. See you next week.
Yeah.
All right. And I don't know what we'll talk about next week, but do you have any ideas? Nah.
I'm sure something will come up during the week.
Something always does, man. We've got cable. All right, man. I'll catch you next week, brother.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Later.
Later, man.
You have now experienced the Thoroughly Wrong Project with your podcast hosts, Lalo and Bob. We can now be found on Pandora Radio, Apple Podcasts, Podium Podcast, or by searching The Thoroughly Wrong Project to locate our YouTube channel. You can contact us directly by email at thoroughly-wrong@gmail.com or just leave a comment on any of our platforms. Until next time, thanks for spending your valuable time with us, and remember, always speak up and never be afraid to be thoroughly